the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, Coach Hoffman here. The recent ruling by the Supreme Court that the case out of Louisiana, that the gerrymandering that goes on, and it's not just in Louisiana, it's all everywhere. Anyway, it's unconstitutional to use race as a criteria for changing districts, and it was all done obviously because Democrats knew that they had to create victimized sectors of a voting class, and then redraw the lines to favor a minority. And you should treat everybody equally. Everybody should be the same. If you truly want people to be on the same level, you don't treat them differently just because of the color of skin. And that's clearly what was going on with the Supreme Court case. So what that means, and that's the case all over the United States, the gerrymandering was created by using racial profiles to redraw lines. And the Supreme Court essentially said you can't do that because then now you're discriminating against certain people because of the color of their skin. So that means that Republicans are going to pick up more seats, have more opportunities for seats. The left is melting down like crazy. But why are they melting down? Why would they be so upset about it? It's like I've said, and more people are becoming more comfortable talking about it. Is the problem with Democrats is that they've rigged elections for years, and we're just now starting to call them out on it. People felt bad doing that before because Republicans would cry about, oh, it's not, you're being mean to me because I'm pointing something out that you're doing wrong. And Democrats would scream and yell and then throw racial accusations at anybody that questioned the way that they did their business. And all along, they've been gerrymandering. And so we're trying to correct the maps now. And as I've always said, if you take away the ability for Democrats to cheat, they can't win. They can't win anything. They've never been as close at a 50-50 kind of split that they try to portray themselves. That's never been the way that the demographic makeup position them politically. They've had to take underwhelming classes of people, pit them against each other, turn them into minorities, and then use that as justification to advance a cause. Either people of color couldn't vote equally with people who weren't of color, or people who were traditionally white, or they try to victimize women, they try to victimize people in urban versus suburban settings, rural settings. They victimize everybody everywhere in order to try and get the vote out for them. But if taken as a whole, Democrats don't win because most people lean towards Republicans. So most of these districts are complaining about they never would have had unless they had election fraud, unless they rigged things to begin with. And then when you vote, they have the mail-in votes. People can't get out of their bed. They can't get out of their house to go vote. You have to have extended voting days because some people can't remember what day voting days are. They've created every victimized status in order to try and pull in more Democrats. And the gerrymandering thing is clearly a problem because it was rigged to separate people in weird ways just to create Democrat districts that might favor them and make them appear more equal. Now, voters ultimately have the pick of who they want to vote for, but when the gerrymandering that Democrats created, when they created these racial profiles, which the Supreme Court found unconstitutional, as it should be, because you're profiling people you're drawing districts based on the color of skin, and everybody should be equal. So that's to try and favor victimized classes that Democrats created to exploit. And now that that's not becoming so much of an issue, people are returning back to a baseline. Thankfully, because Trump communicates to everybody, the Democrats have a real hard time keeping up. Which then comes back to the whole idea of, well, now you see how their faces are melting over this ruling from the Supreme Court, and they're upset because they know that weakens their ability to stay close in the midterms. It's always going to be a hard thing for them, even though you hear the horse race people talk about it's going to be close. Democrats always win in off-year elections after you have a Republican president. And that's somehow some kind of scientific data that says that's how it's always going to be. And that's clearly not the case, not in this case or any case. It only existed because Democrats were aggressive. They pushed for a fraudulent condition to create elections under, and Republicans were nice and let them do it. But that doesn't mean you continue to let them do it perpetually. Clearly, there's a uniparty class. There's some Republicans in it that want a one-party rule. And election fraud is part of it. You find that very prevalent in other elections around the world, where one party essentially runs everything, and they create the illusion of voter engagement by having fraudulent elections, with digital machines or some other form. And they've tried to implement that in the United States. And we know better now, and we're rooting it out, and it's been a problem. It was a serious problem in past elections, especially in 2020, corrected in 2024. We had a kind of a representative government where Trump was able to become president, but you have a lot of Senate seats, a lot of House seats that clearly would have went to Republicans if Democrats were cheating, which is why the SAVE Act is so important, and ultimately why the filibuster rule should be blown out. And essentially, if you remember back in the day when Senate could filibuster by talking as much as they wanted to prevent a vote, then they could stall forward-moving legislation, and that's kind of what they're doing now. Now they changed the rule. Now you have to have a 60-vote majority, but unless you can rule over the 60 votes, you can't hold up a bill. So Democrats, since there's not a majority, a 60 Republican majority, Democrats can still hold up legislation. And so the debate is, should we just move on and go to a simple majority rule? And the answer is yes, because Democrats are going to do it like crazy as soon as they ever get power back. And I think you have to play this with the intention, knowing what you know now, that they're never going to get power back. They should never have power back. It should never occur. And the math back on this districting map layout, and now many states are going to, and now that you can't redraw districts based on racial profiling, now that that's out there, that's going to set a precedent in many states, which is good. It's the way it should have been all along. But when you do that, you're going to find out Democrats never had the majorities that is given them the illusion of having. So when you have to worry about, should you blow up the filibuster and go to a simple majority vote, pass the SAVE Act and any other things, because you have, the vice president can simply break a tie vote. Should you do it? Yes, you should do it. You know why? Because Democrats don't have, if you eliminate election fraud from elections, Democrats have no power. Now, that may seem unfair, but you have to understand, you have a republic, and it's supposed to represent the people that are out there. Turn it over to voters, let voters vote for what they want to vote for. But don't let the Democrats cheat to get votes that they don't really deserve by mixing the map up and trying to configure things in a way that allows them to cheat. And if they did it on gerrymandering, which they clearly did, Republicans are simply trying to set the stage back to where it should have been. Democrats are the ones that chopped it all up for years and have benefited with disproportionate amounts of representation that never was a factor in the way that Democrats have broken up minority groups to try and gain power for themselves. So the intent to cheat was clearly revealed in the way that they gerrymandered, and now that's been ruled unconstitutional. They're melting down because they know it's going to hurt them, because they know their power is hanging on by illegal methods of unconstitutional gerrymandering. And when you add all the other rules, and you add the voting rules, the early voting rules, and not have an ID, all things that make sense. They know that all those mechanisms they have used to try and keep it close. And it wasn't successful when they couldn't cheat in 2024 by keeping the executive branch under their control. They know they're going to lose a lot of House and Senate seats in future elections if they can't gerrymander and if the SAVE Act is passed and you have to have voter ID. I remind everybody, remember, Kamala Harris won in states where there wasn't any voter ID. In states where there was voter ID, she did not win. So the Democrats, it's not such a well-kept secret that there's a lot of cheating that's going on, and that favors Democrats. And for those who kind of buy into the whole globalist idea, and they're rhino Republicans that are very friendly with Democrats, and they want to keep it close, and they want to be part of the uniparty. Of course, they're against any kind of election reform. They want to be part of that uniparty class, but it's not up to them. It's the People's Republic, and people should be able to vote and get what they want out of elected representatives. It's not for some uniparty friendly with globalism to decide. And so there needs to be a SAVE Act. The Senate should get rid of the filibuster, go a simple majority vote, because Democrats, the minute they can do it, they're gonna do it. So beat them to the punch and make it so that they never have power again, because they aren't represented. Their radical leftist side of Democrat politics, rooted in Karl Marx, is not the majority of opinion in the country. And if you want to prove it, then have election reform and let people vote for what they want. But that's not what it's about for them. It's about stealing elections, stealing power, and running out the clock so they can gain power in the United States and implement socialism, as they've done with Barack Obama, Joe Biden, tried to do with Kamala Harris, and just about a whole lot of seats in the Senate and the House, and mayors all across the country, governors all across the country that would have not been elected if not for election fraud. Take away the ability to cheat, and you get much better election results, and you will find that they will not gain power again and will not be able to use that filibuster rule against Republicans in the future. So you got to call their bluff, and got to take power while you have it and do good things for restoring to people a representative republic. And that's the first priority, and it's everything Republicans should be doing. And those that are in the uniparty and are dragging their feet on the SAVE Act need to go. And you got to target them and get rid of them. But you got to call it what it is. So thank goodness the Supreme Court came out and ruled correctly on this Voters' Rights Act that should have never been in place. Because it's not about voters' rights. It's about Democrat power by gerrymandering to victimize groups that they think are going to vote for Democrats because Democrats give them free stuff. And that's just further enslavement. It's not treating people on equal footing in a free society. That's not the way it works. And that's why the Senate needs to go ahead and vote for the SAVE Act. And don't look back at Democrat feelings, and do it with an intention that they never gain power again. And your future two parties are going to be these rhinos, and then Trump conservatives from the MAGA movement. That's your two parties. That's your representative republic. And if you want to fight it out with the rhino globalists who are trying to create that uniparty, have at it. But you got to get the socialists and Marxists out of the whole political consideration. And that's what we're doing. That's what the Supreme Court certainly ruled in favor of, and that's why Democrats are falling apart, because they know how they rigged the game, and now they're not going to be able to rig it like that anymore. Thank goodness. But going further, the SAVE Act, voter ID should be a basic criteria. Nobody should be against that. And if anybody is, it's because they're trying to preserve the right for them, preserve the method of them to cheat in elections. And that's the only way they can hold power. And everybody knows it. And the evidence is going to be quite clear, especially when some of these rules in the Supreme Court fall into play. And it was never a close 50-50 split in the House and Senate. It's only made that way because of election fraud. The majorities are much greater for the Republicans and always have been. And there's no reason to play nice with Democrats. Run them over, pass the SAVE Act, and don't look back. It's the end of the story, because they'll do it to you for sure. as evidence in this whole gerrymandering thing. Anything they can get by with, they've done it, and we better learn our lessons and act properly going forward. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day. See you later.
Thank you for listening. Coming soon, The Politics of Heaven in 2027. A treasure hunt through heaven and all human history.